G'day, I'm Dr. Kev from Car Design Workshop, and today I'm joined by Howard Ash.
Pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, so I think I've known you for a little bit now. We actually used to be competitors.
Indeed, yeah, no, we do go back. I believe it was back in December 2001.
Yeah, so if you know much about your Formula Student or Formula FSAE, back in the really early, I mean, we're quite old now.
Apparently, just a rumour, I think, Kev.
So in the early days, you were quite successful. You were with the University of Leeds?
Correct, yeah. First North American team to compete in Formula FSAE back in 1997, and yeah, we loved it and kept going back. And
You did a really good job.
we did all right, and yeah, no. So we had the fortune to go and compete back down in Australia back in 2001, which is where our paths met.
Yeah, and I think we met 2001. You were already at the end of a very successful run in Formula Student, and I was only just beginning at that point. And I think we borrowed some springs off you. I think that was.
That's right, yeah, no, indeed, and yeah, no. So we were both involved in suspension.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Who would have thought that after all of this time, we would still be involved with Formula Student, now over here in UK. So you'd gone to Australia and we'd met, and now I come back to the UK every couple of years or so, and teaching students doing this.
Indeed, yeah, no, absolutely. No, just sharing the joy of engineering, and yeah, no, just how great it is, really.
So how did you get into cars and stuff like that in the first place?
Oh, going way back, definitely got it from my dad. Dad had a classic car, and yeah, he'd be hands-on. And growing up as a kid, I remember him bringing an engine into the kitchen, and when
Mum like that?
I just thought that was normal, And so yeah, I really got it from my dad. And the first thing I kind of really got involved with then was using 10-scale electric off-road buggies. And so I remember choosing a kit, and yeah, we had local clubs where you can go racing. And so that's really for me where it started. But then also through secondary school, actually, I was very fortunate where I went that we had a Hovercraft club. And so that's where my passion for that started. And we were nicknamed the Pasta Spanner Club because we were always repairing things. And yeah, some things never change.
Yeah, I had the joy of joining you, having a look at that Hovercraft just yesterday. I think just polish a few parts for you. But it's a really nice little machine, that.
Yeah, and it's interesting actually, because what's really improved actually over the years is the materials.
Yeah.
So back in the day, we were making craft, from very simple construction from plywood, and then it progressed into fiberglass. But now you've got a much more exotic range of materials there, and so we actually use a mix of Kevlar and carbon fiber, and so all up weight of that craft was 125 kilos. And so
It's pretty light.
yeah, but also means that the driver needs to pay attention to their diet.
But you've got two drivers for your team, don't you?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so my son, he also races, and so he's actually just gone into seniors now, and so he and I buddy up as teammates, and he does have an advantage just given the weight difference, Kevin. Weight does matter, and unfortunately the data does tell me that.
Your son did warn me that you would use weight as an excuse.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, but we see it straight off the line where anyone can go quite.
I think sharing your passion for, I guess, how things work and equipment, that's, I guess, why we end up in education. And so it's not surprising that that's something that you have in your home as well. How do you balance bringing, I guess, the passion that you have for motorsport and for really just about anything that moves? How do you bring that sort of passion and have to also teach just the hard nuts and bolts of engineering?
Yeah, no, it comes across, and if you've got that passion, it's great to be able to bring that into the classroom, show through examples and make it industry relevant, and so bring it to life. We've got some great links with industry, and so it means we're able to get in touch with those guys and actually have some problems where these are teams that are competing, and they want to solve issues. And so we can set that kind of thing as a project for the students. And so we do a lot of group work as well. And no, it's a great opportunity for the students. And so really it's about making it all authentic, using real data sets, that kind of thing.
And I noticed that it's not just Formula Student that you're doing here. You also have, we're in the sim room. So you've got vehicle sims that you're getting real data from that students can spend some time with. And
so, yeah, so we can actually generate our own data sets as well from these. And actually, quite often what we'll do is we'll have data from a real GT3 car, for example. But then for the student, though, they don't really get the appreciation of what it's like for the driver. And so
Yeah.
actually we can use these in a formative way to say, hey, okay, here's the opportunity to drive that car around the same track. We'll also collect the students' data. That's all saved up to the cloud. And so during a session, they can have a break, they can actually have a look through their data. And what's great about it is they can actually see how they're comparing against the fastest time. And so they can actually start to
Yeah.
engineer themselves and see where they're losing that time. And so it's getting an appreciation for what the performance engineer needs to be able to do and get those messages across. So they're great tools, and we can always use it for vehicle handling and performance. So a nice, safe environment to be able
Yeah.
to learn.
And I think when we were both involved as students in Formula Student or Formula SAE Australasia for me, we were both drivers and both into vehicle dynamics, so suspensions, dampers, and all of that. And I really felt that being able to drive the car and mix that with the theory
Yeah.
really helped. One helped the other, and
Yeah. No,
vice versa.
absolutely. And, we've got to get the best out of the vehicle, and just understanding how the tires work.
You got the best out of the vehicle. I think I always left a little bit on the table.
Oh, I don't know, but I mean, I do remember that particular event we were both competing in, and yeah, I had it on two wheels, and we did win the skip out of it on that particular one, and it was great days, and yeah, no, so to be able to have the students be able to do that as well these days is fantastic. But yeah, no, putting the engineering theory into practice for me is what it's all about.
And I noticed you've also got, I mean, in this room, we've got the aircraft sim. So you do the same sort of thing for your aeronautics programs, but you've also got a couple of caterings.
We do, Kevin. Yeah, no, absolutely. And so one we'll literally have as the kit car. And so really for us, getting those fundamentals is so important to students, because one thing talking about it, but not every kid's going to have the opportunity to actually get hands-on with vehicles like that. And the beauty about those cars is that you can see everything.
Yeah.
They're great things. And so again, we'll do labs where the students actually get the opportunity to build up the car, and it doesn't just sit there at the end. We'll actually start it and use it as well. So that one just around campus, so not a road legal car, because we are going to literally tear that down again and students rebuild it. So we're with a
Yeah.
fresh cohort. But then you mentioned the second one.
Yes.
We do have two. So then the other one, effectively, is our track day car.
Yeah.
And so what that allows us to do is add the data acquisition system onto the vehicle. And so we can put a range of sensors on there, and we can go about doing some handling tests. And that's great. And so when I talk about authentic assessments, and so we can do a setup of the car, etc. So we understand what we've got. We'll be able to then take the vehicle out. And so really as an educator, what I'm doing is help facilitate the learning. And so in engineering, it's not just, the design, the engineering, etc. Also being able to work with the teams here at the university to be able to help facilitate this. So whether
Yeah.
it be security and, the health and safety team, because, we can do pretty much whatever. It's just making sure we go about it the right way. And
Yeah, and that, you took me out in that car, didn't you?
yes,
And I
yeah,
can assure you, no speed limits they were adhered to at all times.
I'm sure
Very
they're
grippy car, very grippy car. I think we've got some data of that. I don't know if we show that on these videos. But I mean, you have a process here you called CDIO.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is something called CDIO. It's Conceive, Design, Implement, and Operate. It's been going for, I believe, over 20 odd years or so. It started by some universities, Scandinavian countries, and MIT were involved with it as well. And it's been over in the UK for a little while. We got started with it in 2020.
Oh, okay.
2020 was a bit of an interesting year, as you can imagine.
Yeah, a lot of changes.
Not a good time to try and start doing some group work, as you can imagine. So we had
Yeah.
to change it a little bit, but we actually ended up posting out kits. But essentially, though, problem-based learning, students get a chance to work together in a team, and they'll work on a project. And so they'll understand what the problem is, come up with some ideas, some concepts, do an appraisal, and then go ahead and try and come up with a particular design or a chosen design, do some analysis. But then they've got to make it.
Yeah.
And then it's the making it, and then the testing.
Yeah, that implementation and the operation is so important. I have a little tagline, design, build, improve, and the improve is about that operation and testing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it really is, because with the best will in the world, we can design things great, but actually until you've actually got it out there, made it, tested it, yeah, there's going to be room for improvement for sure. Absolutely. And yeah, it's a great environment to be able to do that.
And I think that's really where Formula SAE had its roots originally. It was that implementation, because there was weaknesses in students that were graduating. They didn't have those hands-on skills.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Appreciation for how things are going to be made, and just understanding the manufacturing processes, that kind of thing. And it is interesting because these days with the cars, there's such a wide range of skills that's required. It is difficult, but and for me, that's why it's also very exciting and refreshing, because no 2 years are ever the same. And so we get new people in, new skill sets. And so it's really important to understand, what skills that people bring to the party, but being able to make sure that we don't drop the bar in any of the areas. So it's always a challenge, but at the same time, though, it is, exciting just seeing, what else we can bring to the party.
So you were there right when the competition really was moving from just being a North American competition to being truly international. And you've been involved in some way ever since. How do you think that that has evolved as a competition? Obviously, it's gone out of the US and now has a very, very deep home in Europe as well.
That's right, yeah. One thing I can safely say is that the size of the rule set has grown an awful lot. It's a lot. It is a much bigger project, I think, these days. And it's interesting because we talk about cars and design, the engineering, but of course it's the project management that's going to make it a success.
Yeah.
And I think that's just so much, it's always going to be very important, but there's just so many different facets to it these days as well. And I mentioned earlier, just the sort of skill set that you need, because there's an awful lot of electric vehicles competing in the UK, the Institution of Mechanical Engineers, IMechE. They're keeping it quite open in terms of what fuels people can run, which I think is great. And so we see quite a range of different powered vehicles. And over the years, we've developed things like a hydrogen-powered car.
Wow.
We competed with our electric car first back in 2009.
Wow, that long ago.
Yeah, but the technology we've seen improve. And so with the batteries, the energy density's been going up, but actually that means things are getting smaller. That means it's then more fiddly to work on. So that's actually quite difficult. But certainly the skill set that's required to be able to develop the battery monitoring systems, etc. That's certainly been quite a challenge for us. And I think sometimes, though, we just need to not forget, though, that, sometimes in a car, less is more.
Yeah.
So, a big believer in that. And yeah.
Well, I think when we started, I mean, not wanting to be, old man yells at people on his grass, but I guess when we started, things were very different. The availability of advanced engineering software tools was much more limited. So I know in our early CAD designs and CAD models, we wouldn't model even close to the whole car. Just you would end up doing a lot of that in the workshop floor. And certainly when we started, FEA was just not even a thing that we did. And CFD, definitely not. Not at the very beginning. How do you think things have changed through, I guess, education as those tools have become much more accessible? How do you still balance that with the hands-on skills?
Yeah, no, do you know what? I much prefer sometimes when we, got an idea or something like that, let's just do some hand calculations. Because I just think there's an awful lot of faith that's put into those computational tools.
Yeah.
And it's not always well placed. And so I always like to bring it back to first principles. And so I think, making sure that we've got those solid foundations that the students can understand, a bit about the materials, the theory, etc. Be able to do those hand calcs. And, I love an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
There's so
Love and
much,
hate.
but yeah, there's just so much you can do with that, though.
Yeah.
And so I kind of, I like that as a bit of a sanity check, because, so often I'll be met with, we're getting this value of stress, and, and you're like, what on earth? And, so I will always just go back to pen and paper and, let's, try and simplify the problem. So I think sometimes we can go into those tools a bit too hastily and have a bit too much faith. So yeah, we've got to do the testing to be able to back up and validate those tools.
Yeah, I actually have some sympathy for students that are dealing with that, because we just didn't have to. So we would learn the basics very, very well and apply those tools over and over. But there is an expectation that they leave a university now able to use those tools, but also have a really strong theoretical first principles grounding, which I think is a real challenge for them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And no, there's some great projects, and through design of coursework, etc. Then they get to grips with those tools. But at the same time, though, we've got to make sure that what they're getting out from the software is believable, and we can validate it.
Okay, so look, this is great talking about education, but I'm fairly selfish about this. I've got my own project, so I don't know if you've been following Project 171. What would some of your advice be for starting a project like that, or guess managing the whole process of design and build of a car? What are some of the things you think people miss out on if they haven't done it before?
Goodness, do you know? I think you've got to enjoy the adventure, because it is that, and Goodness, I think sometimes it's the stuff we don't think about that will catch us
Yeah.
out. And we've been fortunate over the years to be able to do things like full post-rig testing.
I'm very jealous.
And I got to say, it's amazing because it tells you what you've got as
Yeah.
opposed to what you think you've got. And so every car is going to be different. But for example, on one particular car we tested, we knew what springs and what dampers we had on there, etc. So we thought, this should be pretty good. But what was funny was that where the springs and dampers were mounted to on the car, it was terrible.
Yeah.
We had the same sort of stiffness there as the sidewall of the tyre. And so it just meant that if you were trying to tune the car, you're just on a hiding to nothing. You weren't going to be able to do it because the suspension was just moving against the thing that you thought was rigid. And so assumptions and things like that. But I guess it's a case reinforcing the idea of sound design principles. And so considering low pass, so important to follow good design principles for sure. But sometimes things will happen, or you might have to make a compromise, which might end up really hurting the overall tunability of the car, for example.
Yeah, I'm a bit concerned I won't be able to bring Project 171 over here to hop on the four-poster. And we've been lucky enough the last couple of times we've been over here to have the car on the four-poster at Multimatics. And I've been amazed that you can get the result that you're getting out of Multimatics without going on a four-poster, but it takes you so much longer, a lot longer on the track. And I'm amazed with what those guys can do in a day.
Oh yeah, I mean the test itself is under 2 minutes, and within moments you're able to actually review the data, and yeah, so insightful, really, really good, and yeah, no, an incredible tuning aid, and yeah, no, you're really able to get that car in the sweet spot, and then know that you've got adjustments to be able to go either way, just depending on conditions, etc.
So you're a fellow suspension nerd as well. I think that's the appropriate term for it. Why suspension in particular in cars? So why not really get into engines or really get into structures? What attracted you to that?
Yeah, it's interesting. When I first got involved with Formula SAE and Formula Student, I was fortunate I was able to do a chassis project, and then second year came around, I was like, okay, well, I'd like to, diversify. And so, yeah, so we went through suspension, and then after my undergraduate, I had the opportunity to do a PhD, and so that was in the field of vehicle dynamics. And so, yeah, so kind of, obviously enjoyed that an awful lot. And what I'd say though about the projects I've been involved with is that you do get to pick up on all the different
All the- yeah.
areas. And to be honest though, doing the racing that I do on the side with the Hovercraft stuff,
There's no suspension there.
well, this is it. I just do it on a cushion of air.
Yeah.
So, but I've had to learn, much more about the powertrain, and so doing full engine rebuilds, that kind of thing. And I think sometimes it's just really having the opportunity to do some of those things because it's not always forthcoming. And so certainly been at a university where those projects are, happening. Yeah, people have got opportunities, which makes it great. And so I'm a lot more sympathetic now to powertrain needs and that kind of thing with the experience I've had. But yeah, so I just find it amazing that we get involved with all the different aspects of the car, but there's always things to learn. But we've got to, remember the first principles, keeping it simple and just low pass, that kind of thing, and don't assume anything.
Well, and I think that is one of the joys I've had in teaching, and especially teaching people about how to do cars, is going in, being, I guess, more knowledgeable in the suspension areas. You still have to help people through all the other areas.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if it's been the same for you, but the last couple of decades, I've learned so much more about all of the areas of working on cars, and ended up probably supporting more students working on composites than I have done in suspension, which has been, I didn't think that would be a thing.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, it's good to be a bit of a jack of all trades. And I mean, I just find it fascinating that, you can design and make this product, but the ultimate proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be things to improve. And, I sometimes find that when students take out a Formula car, they won't necessarily complain about anything because they don't necessarily know anything different. But I guess with a not regular road car, we do. But again, though, there's differences between your regular sort of SUV versus a sports car. And in fact, that was quite a lot to do with the research work that I was doing when I did my PhD, because I was trying to find metrics that we can actually use to really try, what are the key metrics that we feel, if you like, that, inform us how the vehicle's behaving.
Yeah, and I think our PhDs had sort of some similar elements to it, both vehicle dynamics based. Mine was interestingly on evolutionary optimization techniques. So these are heuristic methods that are much cruder than what we see in sort of the neural networks, sort of AI models and large language models that we got. But obviously now we're at the cusp of another shift where these optimization routines, or these search mechanisms through AI, are becoming so just universal, and you have them in your workflow now. How do you see, as an educator and somebody involved with the automotive industry and motorsport through that, how do you see the value, or the unique value, that a person will be able to bring into the future that AI won't really be able to do?
I see.
Obviously putting it on the spot here with
Yeah,
that one.
yeah. No, I think it's kind of the sanity check, really, because sometimes the stuff you get out, you know, isn't going to be right. But yeah, no, it is interesting. And so there are these very powerful tools there, and ultimately people are going to use the tools. But does it make sense? Is it? Yeah. So I think experience counts for so much.
Yeah.
It really does, and you can't beat that. And I think the best way to do that is by, getting your hands dirty, doing it yourself.
And I noticed when we go to, say, Multimatics to do a test, and I think if we look at the CDIO, we think of implementation and operation. So if we're at Multimatics with the test, those guys have seen so many cars before. They've got a huge amount of experience, but they're not publishing that information online. So I'm not sure how an AI would ever get that information
Yeah,
into the
no,
system to
absolutely.
train on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think definitely when we come over to the UK, we're surrounded by people that are in this sort of industry, in motorsport and automotive. And on that point, you run both a motorsports and an automotive course in Hertfordshire. The automotive industry in the UK has gone through a little bit of turmoil, I think it's fair to say, in the last couple of decades. Where do you see the future is for the automotive industry in general here in the UK?
It's got to be using our knowledge, really, and being able to, drive advancements, etc. And so, I mean, we have colleagues looking at AI, and so autonomous vehicles, that kind of thing. And yeah, we're also looking at this kind of the human side to that as well,
Yeah.
and the ethics, that kind of thing. So it's really quite interesting. I took my first ride in an autonomous vehicle last summer, and it was quite bizarre, really. It was better than I thought it would be.
Mm.
But as a bit of a, a car junkie myself, though, I'm quite happy doing the driving myself.
Yes. So Project 171, that's the one we're working on. The idea is it's a car that has some influences from the 1950s sports cars of the UK, and I know you're well
Yeah.
acquainted with some of those. And the goal I've set is to make the most engaging car that I can. What do you think makes a car engaging?
Lightweight, open top.
That's very simple.
Yeah, no, but you know what though? Because back in the day, there's no power assisted steering, and the tyres weren't great. But just the fact that it needs to be nice weather, roof down, and
And the UK's got plenty of wonderful weather.
so this summer we're doing okay. So yeah, no, but can't be counted on. But yeah, no, I mean, but also it's the styling of the car. That's really important. I think back in the day, though, because let's not forget, you'd have your chrome bumpers, you might have your wire wheels. And so the cars really had character, fairly crude exhaust systems as well, because that's the thing. Everything these days is so refined. Whereas back in the old days, the cars, they weren't that refined at all. And so it's much more of a visceral thing,
Yeah.
a much more visceral experience. And I think we experienced that in the 420 Caterham the other day. But yeah, no. So for me, so fortunate, my dad, he had an MGA. So I think we bought that in the very early 80s. It's a 1960 model. And yeah, it's just a lovely car. And so great shape to it. And we never drive it fast or anything like that.
They feel fast, don't they? Even
Well,
though they're not.
yeah, no, really not, because it's probably no more than about 80 odd horsepower. So it's not about the performance, but a great looking car, and just simple. So you can work on them. So yeah, they just bring a smile to my face. Honestly, every time that car comes out, yeah, love it.
So I've got one more question. I sort of want to make this a standard question anytime I got somebody lucky enough to have someone so knowledgeable in front of the camera. If there was a past car project or hovercraft project that's occurred in the past that you would have loved to have been involved with, what would that project have been and why?
Oh goodness. Do you know what? I kind of look through, perhaps the sort of 70s, that era in Formula One with rose tinted glasses. I
Mm.
just think that, the teams were small, you could be an independent, and I just think that would have been such an incredible time.
Is there
Uh,
is there a team that stands out during that era that you think, oh, that's the one?
Okay, so growing up, Lotus was always the team I loved, and so, what a genius Colin Chapman was. And so I think that, those sorts of cars, that kind of era, and, thankfully safety has improved an awful lot since then. But I think, being involved in a team that kind of size back in those days, just I can imagine getting involved in all sorts of different things. Yeah, that's
Sounds pretty good to me too.
yeah,
Oh, well, thank you very much for your time, Howard. It's been great having you on board.
absolute pleasure, Kevin. Thank you.